Well, where should we begin? You guys have heard of whitewashing history, but have you heard of blackwashing? Blackwashing is when you're a politician and it's election season and suddenly you have to relate to black people. So you just sort of start making stuff up to blackify yourself, your history. You start dropping a bunch of slang and colloquialisms and hoping that the people will therefore understand you. Honestly, it's become something of a democratic rite of passage. Except this time, I think we may have caught the culprit red-handed. Of course, I'm speaking about Kamala Harris. I think her and her campaign team are really going to regret the day that their media henchmen came for Janet Jackson. Welcome back to Candace. I'm literally buzzing with excitement right now for what we just discovered. Obviously, we are running a little bit late today, but as I said, it will be well worth the wait. So yesterday, we were getting closer and closer, asking questions, obviously, about Kamala's genealogy. If you need to go back, you can do that. Begin with episode 70 and work your way forward to see how this mystery has unfolded. So we were left with some major holes in Kamala's genealogy. We had from her father, Donald J. Harris, that he grew up in Jamaica and was raised by his grandmother, Miss Iris. He effectively wrote an entire piece about his Jamaican heritage and really focused on his grandmother, like she is the person that made the most difference for him. He honorably mentioned Miss Iris's husband, who he only referred to as Mr. Christie, and remained conspicuously silent about his own mother. How do you do that? How do you just say one sentence about your mother, refer to her as Miss Beryl? And I want to be clear, you're writing this for the population, right? You're talking about your heritage. Even if you called your mother Miss Beryl, you would probably, for the sake of wanting people to be clear on who you're referring to, list her full name. He didn't do that. He just said one sentence. This is not to, ignore my mother, Miss Beryl. And that was it. And we know that her full name, according to her birth certificate, is Beryl Magdalene Finnegan. And we know that at various times she took on the middle name Christie. He also mentioned in that piece that his father was Mass Oscar. I guess, again, that is kind of a slang way of referring to his father. But I was completely stumped. I was completely stumped as I was looking further into this because I could not find a marriage record between his father, Oscar Joseph Harris, Miss Oscar, and his mother, Beryl Finnegan. Like, this is something that to me seemed really odd. And some people who wanted to rationalize it were saying, oh, no, that's just how things were. And sometimes people didn't have record. No, I wasn't buying any of that because we were dealing with a family that had money. It is just a fact that Kamala Harris's family descends from slavers. They were given money for their slaves. Somebody did the calculation, essentially, for that day and time, it would have been $11 million that they inherited for their slaves once it was abolished. It is why when he speaks about his Jamaican heritage, he speaks about them as having owned stores, right? So this is not your typical Black story that we're referring to here. And so I expected very much for there to be a record of marriage. Oddly, as you guys will recall, any records that I did find suggested to me that Beryl may have been the domestic help, who may have also given birth to a son named Donald, born in 1938, who died before he even turned 2. So that was very strange. Question marks. We were like, okay, we're seeing this Beryl, we're seeing this Donald Harris, we're seeing that an infant died. What's really going on here? Why is it starting to feel like a scary movie? But of course, we want to rationalize it ourselves. Like, maybe it is just a coincidence that another Beryl had another Donald in 1938 in St. Aaron Parish, and we shouldn't look too far into that. What we knew for certain was that Beryl, the correct Beryl, was married at the age of 25. So Donald Harris, who was presenting as Kamala's father, would have been 6 years old. She got married to a man named Lawford Newland, who he has completely erased from his childhood historical account. When he wrote this piece, he did not mention a Lawford Newland, a stepdaddy named Lawford Newland. And that was odd because then it would suggest that she would have had to have married his father, Oscar Joseph Harris, after that. So have the kid, marry someone else, and then go back and marry your baby daddy. I don't know, but I needed to find some records. And we also couldn't find a divorce record, by the way, between Lawford Newland and Beryl Finnegan. Where's the divorce record? We did see that he went to America. We searched there. He went through New Orleans. We went through California. We just could not find anything. And in my view, there were too many holes in his account. Numbers that he got wrong about the siblings. I just felt that there was a secret here. So I decided that we needed more information specifically about Donald J. Harris himself. And we couldn't find a birth certificate for him, which I flagged as odd. And I also wanted to find that marriage certificate between his father, Oscar J. Harris, and his mother, Beryl Finnegan. That was crucial to me. So here's what we stumbled upon. More information about Donald J. Harris appeared to us. This is going to get crazy, you guys. I'll tell you how we put this together. Through old Jamaican newspaper clippings that had been digitized. So first and foremost, this one fact checks, but it was a little bit of tidbit of an information that I thought was interesting. It was a wedding announcement that was published in the Kingston Gleaner. That's the name of the newspaper. It was published, as you can see here, November 1st, 1963, which just announces the wedding of presumably Kamala's mother, as we're told, Shyamala Gopalin, to Donald J. Harris. It reads, he is the son of Oscar J. Harris of Spanish Town and Mrs. Beryl Finnegan. Okay. It writes before leaving, it says before leaving Jamaica in and can you pull that up because I couldn't read it for clarity, but it says before leaving Jamaica in, it looks like maybe I don't want to guess it, Mr. Harris worked for the Jamaican Information Service. Okay, what is the Jamaican Information Service? That's what I asked myself. What is that? I'll tell you what it is. The Jamaican Information Service is an executive agency of the government of Jamaica that is responsible for disseminating information. It used to be known as the Government Public Relations Office. It says that to achieve its objectives, the agency utilizes a broad range of media skill sets: print, radio, television, graphic arts, video projection, and public relations. It was established in 1956. Okay, so now we know that before he left Jamaica, he worked for the government. So he's got some connections in government, and he's not the only one, because that newspaper article goes on to inform us that his bride, who we're told is Kamala's mother, is the daughter of Mr. P.V. Gopalin, the Deputy Secretary of the Government of India. So she is also connected to the government of India, and her dad is the Deputy Secretary of the Government of India. That's just a thing that I think is important to know, that these two people worked for the government and they came together and they got married. Now, we still could not find a marriage record between these two, but it may be plausible that they got married somewhere else, but at least we see the announcement. So I thought, now let's focus on his father, right? I'm looking for something to attach Oscar to Beryl, presumably, if this is a family that is important enough to have wedding announcements in the newspaper. Maybe we will be able to stumble upon something between Oscar and Beryl. Now, I want to remind you that Kamala brought up Oscar J. Harris, her grandfather, in her book, and she reveals a picture of him on page 282. So I'm going to show you that right now. It reads, "When I was 10 months old, I visited Spanish Town, Jamaica. This is me with my mother and my paternal grandfather, Oscar Joseph." So we know his name is Oscar Joseph Harris, and we know that that's what he looks like thanks to Kamala Harris's book. Great, love that. So I looked him up, and at first the father came up for a bankruptcy hearing announcement. This is dated, by the way, March 11th, 1939. So this would have been 1 year after Donald was allegedly born. It just reads, "In the matter of bankruptcy petition against Reginald Victor Harris, Oscar Joseph Harris, and Newton Alexander Harris of Brownstown in the parish of St. Anne, trading as Harris Bros, take notice that the above named intend to apply for the revocation of the provisional order of bankruptcy made against them in this honorable court on the 6th day of January 1939. Okay, so we know that they were apparently going through some bankruptcy proceedings, and they were fighting those bankruptcy proceedings. They were going to stand against them. It also, but what's relevant there is that we know it's him because it lists his brothers. It lists that they're from Browntown, and we have fact-checked that genealogy. So this is the correct family. This is the grandfather that Kamala is referring to in her book. Here is where it is going to get crazy. Buckle up. I really hope you guys are sitting for this. He came up again, and fortunately, it was for a wedding. Unfortunately, it was not for a wedding to Beryl. Instead, just like Beryl married somebody else, apparently he married somebody else. Now, this clipping is from June 9th, 1952. Look at this. It says, Oscar Harris weds Vioris Cambridge. Now, I want you to look at this photo, and it certainly looks like, and I know it's a shadow on the left-hand side, but I'm going, that looks like the picture. You can tell by that balding pattern of the person that Kamala has presented to us as her grandfather. And he looks mixed race to me, but that woman on the right looks white to me. Now, I know you're going, Candace, that's crazy. It's a black and white photo, but you know, there's a certain way when you're photographing a black woman that she comes across, and that ain't it, my friends. But again, that was a theory. Let's read the article. It reads, Vioris Cambridge, daughter of Mr. and Mrs. V.S. Cambridge of St. Elizabeth, that's another parish in Jamaica, became the bride of Oscar Harris of Browntown, St. Anne, at a beautiful ceremony in the St. Andrew Parish Church, Halfway Tree, on Thursday last night. Her slenderness enhanced by a gown of white nylon and chantilly lace. The bride, carrying a bouquet of white asters, was given in marriage by her father. Her only attendant, her sister, Carmen Cambridge, wore a gown of aqua nylon and chantilly lace with a bouquet of pink rosebuds. The best man in the ceremony, performed by the Reverend Grant Levi of Montego Bay, was Mr. Newton Harris, brother of the groom. During the signing of the register, Mr. Gene McDonald sang, I'll Walk Beside You, and Because, at a reception held at the home of the bride's uncle on Chester Avenue, Mr. Milton Hamilton was master of ceremonies. I just went, what the heck is this? First and foremost, how odd that Donald J. Harris, as he's recollecting these memories from his childhood, now has left out the part where Beryl married someone when he would have been 6 years old and would have been his stepfather. But he's also now leaving out the fact that his mother similarly married someone when he was a little bit older. I mean, that his father similarly married someone when he was a little bit older, and that woman, at least according to my eyes, appears to me to be fully Caucasian. But I said, that sounds crazy. Let me see if I can find this woman, Vioris Cambridge, by a quick Google search. Like, where? That's quite a different name, Vioris. I've never heard it before. Certainly something's going to pop up. And certainly just one thing did. And it was a funeral entry of a white woman who died in Broward County. And what I noticed about this entry was that it was very scant on details. I'm going to show this to you. Okay? Vioris Anita McPherson, it says. And I'm looking at that face on the left there and I'm going, I recognize that face. This woman looks familiar to me. Am I crazy? Are you guys seeing this? She looks a little bit like Kamala Harris. There's something about the smirk. I don't know. Am I crazy? So I said, let me not jump to conclusions. Maybe I am just so down far the rabbit hole that I'm seeing Kamala's face. So I read this entry and it says, it is with great sadness that the family of Vioris Anita Harris McPherson Cambridge, in parentheses, so we know that that's her maiden name right there, announces her passing on Saturday, June 15th, 2019. She will be lovingly remembered by her children and spouses, her grandchildren and spouses, her great-grandchildren, cousins, nieces, nephews, and friends. We will celebrate her life on Saturday, June 29th, 2019 at 10 o'clock a.m. at Christ the Rock Community Church. It gives the address there, and it says where they will immediately follow at a reception hall. In lieu of flowers, donations may be made to the Alzheimer's Foundation in memory of Vioris Harris McPherson. So nothing given to us there, literally nothing given to us about our family. Have you ever seen that? Usually survived by a sister, a cousin, a brother. I went to see if anybody posted anything. It says she has a really big family. I was like, okay, well, certainly somebody would have posted on the board. You know, people do that all the time. I'm so sorry for your loss. Love you. Cousin, I'll see you there. Hug, kisses, nothing. Very weird. I then tried to look this woman up in Broward County records, and it just looks like people are trying to protect who she was. It doesn't tell me who she's married. I don't see anything there in Broward County. It just says an entry. for a marriage that took place in 1994. And I also see that she's got another name there, McPherson. So maybe she got remarried. But it at least tells us that her birthday was October 7th, 1927. So I thought to myself, can I find a woman, a white woman who was born in Jamaica with that exact birth date, with that exact name? It's, like I said, a very different name, Vioris. And the answer is yes, we did. We were able to locate her birth certificate. And now we know why it said that she was married to V.S. Cambridge. It had listed her father as V.S. Cambridge, Mr. and Mrs. V.S. Cambridge. That's because her father's name is Vivian. Her mother's name is Adina Wright. And here you have it, born in Elizabeth. St. Elizabeth is... here she is. This is this woman, Vioris Cambridge, born to Vivian Cambridge and Adina Wright on October 7th, 1927 in St. Elizabeth, Jamaica. What the hell is going on? Who is this woman? Why hasn't this been mentioned? Why does it feel like this profile was being very hidden? And again, as Donald was jumping in to his family background and speaking about how Jamaican it was, why didn't he mention this? Why didn't he mention this woman, his white relatives? It might be relevant when we're having a discussion about Kamala's race to mention the fact that your dad married a white woman. I'm just saying, here's another picture of her. And there's something familiar about her smile. There's something familiar. I'm looking at this woman, I'm going, this woman looks to me like Kamala Harris. Now, something even weirder, the person who did create something for her online, okay, who created a profile for her on ancestry.com, look what he put in the middle of her name. He lists her name as Vioris Anita Iris Cambridge. Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. So we looked into this briefly. And again, all of this has transpired within the last 4 hours. So we are not as organized about this, or we are not as certain about this, but it looks like the person who made this entry was a member of her extended family. It looks like she got remarried in 1994 in America and that's where she picks up the name McPherson. And that individual put Iris in quotation marks. Is it possible that Donald J. Harris, when he's fondly remembering Miss Iris, could be speaking about this woman? Yeah, it's possible. Everything's a possibility. Like I said, he's very scant on the details here. What we do know is that he declined to mention this woman. He declined to mention someone that his father married who was completely white. And as I said, I wouldn't have an issue with this if people were forthcoming and spoke about this. The press, as you're out there referring to Janet Jackson as crazy, right, for suggesting, what did Janet Jackson say? She said that she heard that Kamala's father, Donald J. Harris, was Irish. Can somebody pull up that picture of Vioris again? She heard that his family was Irish. I think Vioris, maybe Vioris Cambridge, might be Irish. Was she so crazy to mention that, press? Would it be so crazy if you guys did your actual job and looked into these things as opposed to constantly trying to obscure things to protect your preferred candidates because you believe she should just be handed this? Now the question is it possible that the woman that we're looking at right there is Kamala's grandmother? Is it possible, based on the records that we have, that Beryl and Donald never did marry? Is it possible Beryl and Oscar, never did marry? Is it possible, is it feasible that marriage never took place and they both married two different people, and that instead at some point when they decided to blackify Kamala's history, they included this Beryl as her grandmother? Is it possible? I don't want to go too far down conspiracy lane, but I'm telling you that we're close here. This is a big missing piece of her family history that should have been mentioned, okay? And I find it highly suspicious. I do not think that we have answers still on who Donald Harris is. I do not trust him. I do not trust him just having discovered this information and realizing that he left out 2 significant marriages and is instead focusing on Kamala's great-grandmother, referring to her as Miss Iris. Who is Miss Iris actually? I can tell you that, again, we came across all of this in the last few hours, but we're going to stay on them, because now that we have found this piece and we have found this white woman, and again, I'm not trying to call her out for being a white woman, I'm just saying that, like, she is a white woman. She's very white, and Janet Jackson was not crazy to suggest this, and now we know that somebody is putting her in quotation marks as Iris, and a picture is starting to come together. Let me say this. If, and I'm not saying this is true, but if we find out that that woman is Kamala's real grandmother, and can we get a side-by-side of Kamala? If we find out that that is Kamala's real grandmother and that she decided to appropriate the domestic help who potentially died younger as her grandmother, we are watching one of the most diabolical political moves that we have ever seen in the history of this country. I just want to say that. I'm not saying it's true, again, but I'm saying that I don't like the picture. I always find that the dog that isn't barking, the fact that they never mentioned these marriages, the fact that they laughed people out of the room when they suggested that Kamala Harris could be white, and the fact that they just refused to mention any aspect of this and are remaining hush-hush on it, doesn't make me feel good. I don't trust these people. There's something about Kamala saying she's in these streets that doesn't make me feel that she's being honest about who she actually is. And I'm not going to let go of this. Again, we are getting closer and closer, and I will bet you the DNC is paying attention to this show now. All right, guys, before we cover some other stories, I want to remind you about PreBorn. Kamala Harris is the first vice presidential candidate to ever visit an abortion facility. That is the reality. And Tim Walz supported a bill in his home state which legalized the denial of life-saving medical care to infants born alive after botched abortions. The media has dubbed this the abortion election. We have to stand up to this evil. When you join forces with PreBorn, the largest pro-life organization in the nation, you are protecting the greatest victims in our society, babies in their mother's womb. PreBorn's network of clinics are positioned in the highest abortion areas in the nation, and they have rescued over 300,000 babies. When a woman considering an abortion searches to end her baby's life, PreBorn is there. PreBorn gives these women in need a free ultrasound. The power of hearing a heartbeat on an ultrasound combined with God's love doubles a baby's chance at life. One ultrasound costs just $28, and up to 5 ultrasounds are $140. Any gift will help their cause, and all gifts are tax deductible. To donate securely, just dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby. That's pound 250 baby. Or go to preborn.com/Candace. That's preborn.com/Candace. All right, guys, now the other case that I am staying on is Diddy, because I just cannot trust the media to do their job. And it's very obvious to me that powerful people are being protected. It has been clear from the allegations that have been made by the producer who filed the initial lawsuit, allegations that were initially made by Cassie, that Diddy controls a trove of evidence, a trove of blackmail, rather. Again, these are just allegations, but there's a lot of credence to these claims, it seems to me at least, on politicians. They keep saying politicians. That's important to note that. They're saying musicians, they're saying record executives, they're saying other artists, and they're saying politicians are on these tapes. So now what we're doing is people are going backwards and they're recognizing that, wait a minute. There were other people who were signaling to us that something was very wrong with Diddy, and they were virtually just being laughed out of the room. One person who was always anti-Diddy and was always speaking about Diddy as a problematic person was 50 Cent. And it turns out that it's just been announced that he's created a docu-series on Netflix. I can't wait to see this. And he is saying that it's a complex narrative that spans decades, which we are obviously realizing this, which should really make it clear to you that Hollywood is a tremendous evil. Everybody colluded to protect these secrets. They all were aware of it, and few spoke out. So Netflix is producing the docuseries from Curtis Jackson, 50 Cent, about the charges of sex trafficking and racketeering, as well as sexual assault and violent abuse allegations against Diddy Combs. And Alexandria Stapleton will be directing the project. I will be definitively watching this. They describe this as a story with significant human impact. It's a complex narrative spanning decades, not just the headlines or the clips that we have seen so far. And 50 Cent is exclusively speaking to Variety, saying that he remains steadfast in his commitment to give a voice to the voiceless and to present authentic and nuanced perspectives. While the allegations are disturbing, we urge all to remember that Sean Combs' story is not the full story of hip-hop and its culture. We aim to ensure that individual actions do not overshadow the culture's broader contributions. Now, I would actually beg to differ. I would beg to differ on this because, like I said, I read that book, Hollywood Babylon, and as it traced, and again, that was movie culture, so they were kind of getting into the beginning of film, silent films, and making it clear that it was the carnies, the carnival people, the freaks that established Hollywood, and they were creating characters, and these people were drug addicted, sex addicted, and essentially they turned them into stars on screen because in many ways they wanted to emulate, mock, and destroy the church. Right? So they called the movie theaters cathedrals at that time because they wanted people to worship them. They called the stars stars. We still call them stars because they wanted them to worship the stars, so to speak. So it was always a demonic force. And I don't think that hip hop is any differently. I believe that the feds encouraged this sort of music. I believe the record executives worked with the government. And there was a combination of a drug effort to introduce drugs into various communities and music that went along with the drugs that they were offering. So my sister sent me this clip that's going around on TikTok. And one of the things that people think is that hip hop is homophobic, right? But here you have this guy sitting down explaining to a hip hop journalist that actually the reality is that hip hop has always had an explicitly LGBTQ, if you want to call it, agenda. Take a listen to this.
The industry grooms them to be open to it. Like if we go back to the Big Papa video, right? Why was there, you remember the scene in the bathroom? Why was there a transgender pissing in the bathroom with the, and the guy? You don't
Standing
remember?
up, right?
Yeah. Go to the scene when Buster's talking to her at the bar and Big walk up and moved in, and then, or when she say true, stop it right there and look at the knot in her throat.
Not the knot in her throat. Talking about this young lady?
Her name is Shamika. She was from Queens and she got killed because she was a was dating her, didn't know it was a man, and went to have sex with her and found out she was a man, and she's dead, and he's in jail. What I believe is that the Tupac Biggie got so gangster and so big that the agenda that they was about to push on us, that they later pushed on us, it just got pushed back. They was getting ready to groom us right there. They was grooming us. We got a transgender in the Big Papa video, in the bathroom, and the lead woman. Not only in Big Papa and Warning, she's in the bed with Biggie, and then in the Flavor in Your Ear remix, she's dancing behind LL.
Right.
And Hype Williams is director, and she's the lead in all three of those videos, and he's the director of all three of those videos. And it's rumored that that was his chick.
That is a major clue right there. So I wanted you guys to hear that because it does seem like the industry is having a reckoning and people are realizing that this really hasn't been about just creating music. Hollywood is not just creating music for your entertainment. They are giving out frequencies and they are modifying your behavior based on the frequencies that they are giving out. And so it's important to know what it is that you're listening to. On the other end of that, every person who has tried to speak out about this, who has tried to speak out about the industry, the type of people that are controlling the industry, the attacks that people face from the media if they try to speak out is always the same. They're called crazy. They are always called crazy. And an example of one such individual who went through those sorts of attacks is the actor Orlando Brown. He was on Disney, and I remember everyone telling us that he was totally insane and deranged when he was saying a lot of things that at the time sounded crazy, particularly about Diddy. Take a listen.
The requirement is you gotta say no to Diddy. If it's new booty in the building, you know he gonna get it.
Don't take your girlfriend to a Diddy party.
You can take the but he won't you. He ain't worried about that. He is not worried about that at all.
I mean, it's so crazy that all of these clips are coming out and you're listening to so many people speak about Diddy, and each time they just turn it into a joke. And I'm not sure if they're turning it into a joke because they just think that the people are being funny, or because I guess at the other end of that is it's too much to process that all of this has been going on in Hollywood right under our noses, and the individuals that were allowing it, that were complicit in this, are just given billions. I mean, these people are famous. The media loves them. They celebrate them. And so that's the part that always really upsets me, is that when these things take place and somebody goes down, so to speak, like a Diddy or an Epstein, the media pretends like they're surprised, when in the reality is that the media protected them for years until something broke, something came out, and they could protect them no more. Even when the allegations were coming out about Diddy, until he was arrested, the media really didn't talk about this case enough. I mean, I've been talking about it nonstop because, as I said, we have not yet gotten the big names, okay? Diddy, to me, is the fall guy. This sounds like this was a full operation as expressed from the producer, Little Rod, who came out with this initially. It sounds like he implied heavily that the feds are involved, that they're allowed, to have these drugs. The executives that have been named in that suit, we haven't seen any articles written about them, which means that we are still seeing a major effort to protect the big names, just like with Jeffrey Epstein. We still do not have his client list. And that's problematic because that client list is a list of people that we can bank on as being blackmailed, politicians that we can bank on as being blackmailed. And it's important that we know who those individuals are. All right, guys, I'm gonna take a second here before I get in to another story and tell you about 7 Weeks Coffee. 7 Weeks Coffee is America's pro-life coffee company on a mission to fund the pro-life movement, one cup of coffee at a time. Why are they called 7 Weeks Coffee? Because at 7 weeks, a baby is the size of a coffee bean, and it's the same time a heartbeat is clearly detected on an ultrasound. That's why they donate 10% of every sale to support pregnancy care centers across the country. They've raised over $500,000 for these centers and have saved over 5,000 lives by providing free ultrasounds and other resources to moms in need. Now I'll tell you about the coffee because I'm very picky about what I put into my body. It's mold-free, pesticide-free, shade-grown, and low acid, and it's organically farmed. It truly checks all the boxes. So exclusively for my listeners, you can go to 7weekscoffee.com and use code Candace for up to 25% off your order. Remember that your order will directly help support a network of over 900 pro-life organizations across the U.S. That's 7weekscoffee.com and use code Candace for up to 25% off your order. Before we get into your comments, guys, I just also want to mention this Alex Jones InfoWars thing. A judge has now officially approved auctions liquidating all of Alex Jones's assets to pay the Sandy Hook families. And in case you haven't been following this, like, Alex Jones has been fighting a court battle, and essentially he was sued for defamation. He was covering the Sandy Hook shooting. And what he specifically said to me is not at root here. It's the fact that he owes more than $1 billion. $1 billion. And obviously he can't afford to pay $1 billion to the Sandy Hook family, so liquidating all of his businesses. Now, most people, when they heard the story, were like, this is so disgusting. I'm against Alex Jones, that, these families were being harassed because of conspiracy theories that he was spinning. And I want you to first and foremost take a more nuanced take for a couple of reasons. The first thing is to recognize the lies that the media has told us. Let's just do a snapshot over the last 5 years that have impacted people's lives, and you have never seen a lawsuit like this, right? I mean, I'm talking big lies, like lies that have torn apart families, lies that allowed you to have your mother die alone in a hospital because of what they were telling you about COVID. Lies, maybe you were one of the people who lost a family member, a young son or a young daughter, because they suffered from myocarditis and had heart issues and died, suffered from heart issues, myocarditis, and died after they got the vaccine because you trusted the media. We've never seen the media held to that particular standard. So when you see people that are commenting on this case, it's not because they agree with what Alex Jones said or what Alex Jones did. It's because they are realizing this incredible exception and wondering why it is that the media gets away with lying to us virtually all the time, and those lies have real-world impact on our lives. And yet for Alex Jones, they wanted to make sure that they could crush his empire. Now, The other thing that I want to mention to you is that, parking aside the case, one of the reasons that Alex Jones was speaking about this and speaking about school shootings, and this is something that obviously if you've read the book Chaos, you are aware of, but it is a fact. So do not think that it is a conspiracy. It is a fact that our government implemented very sadistic, evil programs trying to control people's minds to get them to commit crimes. That's just a fact. That's a historical fact. You can look this up on Google in your spare time. Learn about the MKUltra program, learn about how the feds were turning people into candidates. And like I said, when you read that book, Chaos, it's about the Charles Manson story. What you didn't know is that Charles Manson was a federal asset, and he was given drugs, and he was instructed on what to do, and he was protected by the feds for a very long time. And so that is something that I just think we need to come to terms with, is that what sometimes happens is that when people suspect these things more broadly, and there have been other cases, by the way, I want to say Timothy McVeigh, I jotted them down. I'm just going to find this really quickly, of people who were involved with the feds that went on to commit crimes. We have, who's the person? Is it Timothy McVeigh that I'm thinking of, you guys? Ted Kaczynski, that's right, who was also involved, Timothy McVeigh. And you don't realize that so many of these cases that you remember hearing about, of these tragic murders that took place or tragic events that took place, the feds were in fact involved. They had a near obsession in the 1960s and the 1970s with seeing whether or not they could condition someone's mind to turn them into a freak, a killer, somebody that could mass control people, which was what Charles Manson specialized in. The hippie commune was fundamentally, as that book implicates, protected by the feds. They knew that they were distributing drugs. They knew that he was brainwashing them. They allowed this to take place because it was a part of their broader operation. So also separate that and know that when people are introducing those aspects, or if people suspect that this could be what the government is doing, it is based on a historical understanding of things that have happened in the past. Again, I am not at all agreeing with anything that Alex Jones said. I just wanted to remark that this is why there has been so much outrage about it, is because there have been so many things that our media has said that have been dishonest, that have lied to us, that have cost real lives. And yet there was this kind of real focus on taking down Alex Jones. And I don't agree with what the families had to go through, potentially because of his rhetoric, but I also don't agree with a $1 billion lawsuit on the back end of that obviously no person could plausibly afford to pay. So I just wanted to comment on that. All right, guys, we're going to get into your comments, particularly about Kamala. I can't wait to see what you guys are saying. First, I just want to remind you guys about Nimi. This episode is sponsored by Nimi Skincare, my favorite skincare brand that's out there. I use it every single night. You might see me using it on Instagram. It's come to be known as America's Skincare Company because they formulate and manufacture all of their skincare products in the USA while supporting pro-America causes and organizations. Nimi Skincare is true American luxury skincare, but their prices are affordable since they deliver directly to your door and cut out the big box retailer middleman. Nimi has everything you need to build an awesome daily skincare regimen to cleanse, brighten, protect, and help fight the key signs of aging. Another reason I love Nimi is that they are a Christian-led company that stands firm in their values of faith, family, and freedom. So you can sign up right now at NimiSkincare.com for a subscription to save 15% on your routine and save an additional 5% using code Candace at checkout. Plus, you'll receive a free gift on every third order. If you aren't sure where to start, take their skincare quiz to find the perfect routine for your skincare. That's Nimi, Nimi, skincare.com, promo code Candace today. It's comment time. I cannot, okay, I'm looking already in the live chat. Candace, they're about to send you to jail. Okay, yeah, I know the Kamala, they're going to be on me like crazy. But it's a huge story. We're going to get into your comments, guys. Again, we are going to jump over to Rumble to read the comments and to get further into this discussion. I am sure your jaws are on the floor. Mine have been on the floor. By the way, guys, support my work. You know I'm demonetized on these channels. Go to locals.com. If you love these investigations and things that we're doing, please go to locals.com and support the show in whatever capacity you can. You can give $1 a month, 50 cents a month, but support independent journalism because nobody would have ever done this except for me when somebody comes for Janet Jackson. Because that's the new rule, you know? You come for one, you're coming for the whole tribe now. We're not doing the wacko jacko thing to every black person that has a thought that's outside of the box. Like, I'm so sick of this. I'm over it. Wacko jacko has been canceled, okay? You come for Janet Jackson, you're coming for all of us, okay? All right, guys, I will see you over at Rumble. All righty. I'm excited to see your comments. This is going